Wherever I go, I'm reasonably confident that I have seen, handled, appraised, touched more 1776 versions of the Declaration of Independence than anyone else.
I'm not sure that's right. I've actually touched all of the ones that you've had, plus all of the ones that other places in New York and elsewhere have had that have come on the market. You might have seen and handled more in museum collections. I could say that there might be more that you don't know about.
I'm Selby Kiffer, the International Senior Specialist for Books and Manuscripts at Sotheby's, and that's my friend Seth Kaller. Seth and I have worked together for over 3 decades, and we're involved right now in a particularly interesting one dealing with a printing of the Declaration from right here in New York City.
It's exciting for so many reasons, but one of them deals with the main question that I get when people are actually looking at a copy of the Declaration of Independence through the signatures. And the first question is, where's George Washington? And the answer is?
George Washington was here in New York trying to prepare to fend off the British invasion, which he failed at. But that's interesting. You mentioned the signatures on the Declaration. To most people, if they were asked to conjure up a picture of the Declaration, it would be that big handwritten document with all the signatures at the bottom. But what do you think about that as being the original Declaration?
That's a priceless souvenir that was done later. They don't envision the copy of the Declaration of Independence, not signed by anybody, that's worth $40 million.
The first question I ask when someone tells me they have a Declaration of Independence, I say, does it have a group of signatures at the bottom? Because if they say yes, and more often than not they do, we know it's a reproduction. Now what gets tricky is some of the reproductions are very valuable. Can you explain that?
In 1823, John Quincy Adams was a Secretary of State who was in charge of holding the original engrossed Declaration of Independence. There were 3 signers of the Declaration who were still alive then, so John Quincy noticed that the engrossed Declaration was being damaged, and he wanted to preserve it. So he hired William Stone, who was the best engraver in America at the time, gave the original to Stone, where he made a copper plate, and 200 copies were officially made.
And those are printed on vellum, so they look very much like the original must have looked. It does give us now an image of that engrossed copy. And, that's just a fancy way of saying handwritten in kind of a semi-calligraphic hand, written out in late July, early August of 1776, and signed mostly not on July 4th, but on August 2nd. You and I both would call up the same picture of the original Declaration in our minds. How would you describe that?
Well, mine might be different than yours because you probably, I'm guessing, would start with the Dunlap broadside.
I would indeed.
And a broadside is a single printed page with text on one side, ideal for posting up on a church wall or post office.
Right, and this is called the Dunlap broadside because it was printed by John Dunlap, the official printer to the Continental Congress, whose shop was just a couple blocks away from where the Congress was meeting. So we have Dunlap's broadside, a single sheet of paper, ideal for reading aloud or posting. Why was it reprinted here in New York?
There's no internet, there's no TV, there's no radio. And declaring independence, I mean, what is the Declaration of Independence? It's the greatest breakup note in history. But people need to know about it. The word has to get out, and it's getting out mostly through these printed copies on horseback, and you could only carry so much. So a few of them went to various places in New York, including George Washington and the Army, and including the Assembly of New York.
So if we took a survey of people on the street and asked them to describe the Declaration of Independence, I think an overwhelming majority would describe the engrossed handwritten copy that's on display at the National Archives with the 56 signatures beneath it. But I don't think either of us would say that that's the original Declaration.
Right.
For me, it's the Dunlap broadside.
If you see a declaration with signatures that's supposed to be 1776, you know it's not real. I see the document as a physical artifact, and I value it as that, but I also see it as part of this story. A story that I wonder what my kids are going to think about telling their kids about it when they have them.